Johnny Cash is dead at the age of 71.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash, a name that echoes through music history, was more than just a legend. He was a man shaped by pain, triumph, and tragedy. Behind the Man in Black's powerful voice and rebellious persona lay a lifetime of struggles, secrets, and sacrifices. But what truly happened in his final moments? What unseen battles did he face as his time ran out? His journey was filled with heartbreak, addiction, and loss, yet his resilience never wavered. As the world remembers his iconic legacy, the truth behind his last hours remains a mystery few have uncovered. Was it the weight of a lifetime of pain, love, and regret that led to his tragic end? Or was there something even darker beneath the surface? The answers may change the way you see Johnny Cash forever. A legendary voice. Johnny Cash left an unforgettable mark on music history, shaping the sound of the 20th century. With over 90 million records sold, he became one of the top-selling artists ever, his songs resonating across generations. Beyond his deep voice and rugged image, Cash had a strong sense of justice, using his platform to perform for both inmates and world leaders. But behind the fame and fearless persona was a troubled man battling inner demons. His defiant nature, which fueled his artistry, also led him down a dangerous path of addiction and struggle. During an interview, Johnny Cash was asked,
"When you were on the pills, did you think you were a better singer because of them?"
I thought I was invincible.
In 2003, Johnny Cash's passing was not unexpected to those who had been following his declining health. Just months earlier, on May 18, 2003, at exactly noon, he stood at Hendersonville Memory Gardens in Tennessee, facing the reality that he had only 4 months left to live. It had been only 3 days since the love of his life, June Carter, had passed away due to complications from heart surgery. Johnny and June's love story was one for the ages. When they married in March 1968, he became part of a legendary musical lineage. June was the daughter of A.P. and Sarah Carter, founding members of the Carter family, a group that left a lasting mark on folk and country music. Through Johnny's darkest struggles, June was his source of strength. Now, with her gone, those closest to him feared how he would carry on. Their only son, John Carter, remained by his father's side, offering comfort in his time of sorrow. At 71, Johnny Cash was experiencing a powerful comeback, once again earning recognition as one of country music's most respected figures. His influence spanned generations, with both devoted fans and new listeners celebrating his work. But beyond the music and fame, Cash carried deep scars from a turbulent past, wounds that time never fully healed. Just as his career soared once more, the burden of his struggles and the toll on his health became impossible to ignore. What defining moments from his early years shaped the man behind the legend? The loss that shaped a legend.
And he was a great influence on me, and it was a big, big loss when he died for me, you know. And it was hard to get rid of. In Betty Ford, I went through a thing called grief therapy.
Johnny Cash came into the world on February 26, 1932, in the small town of Kingsland, Arkansas. He was the fourth of 7 children born to Ray and Carrie Cash, a hard-working couple who made their living as cotton farmers. Deeply religious, his parents raised their children with strong faith and a firm sense of discipline. From a young age, Johnny toiled alongside his family in the cotton fields, experiencing firsthand the struggles of farm life. Working long hours under the scorching sun, he learned the value of perseverance and resilience, qualities that would later shape both his music and his identity. Life on the farm was already tough, but for Johnny Cash, it was made even harder by a father who struggled with alcohol and often took his anger out on him. Through the hardships, one thing brought him comfort: his older brother, Jack. Johnny looked up to him, seeing him as a guiding light in an otherwise difficult world. But when Johnny was just 12 years old, tragedy struck, forever changing the course of his life. Recalling the tragic day, Johnny shared in an interview, "Splitting logs to make a fence post with a tabletop saw. That morning, my mother felt something was going to happen. He did too, and I did too. I begged him to go fishing with me, but we finally walked out. Mama stood on the steps and watched us go. I've never seen her do that. As they parted, Jack joked. He started imitating Bugs Bunny, and I said, "I'll see you later, Doc." He kept already going on this way, and I went this way. He said, "What's up, Doc?" "What's up, Doc?" As long as I could see him. Johnny continued his day, but felt uneasy. I got to the river, and it was the worst day for fishing I'd ever come to. I lay on the bank and stayed, probably 2 hours. When he returned, his father arrived in a preacher's car. He told me to jump in. He said, "Throw your fishing pole away." I knew something really bad had happened. I asked, and he said, "Jack has been hurt on the table saw, and there's no hope for him." That's pretty heavy time for me. Losing Jack was a wound that never healed, but the pain was only worsened by Johnny's father, Ray, who never forgave him for surviving. He openly blames Johnny for Jack's death, repeating the cruel words, "It should have been you." This was the defining moment that shaped Johnny Cash, not just as an artist, but as a man, carrying a burden that would follow him for the rest of his life. Johnny Cash's rise to fame. Johnny found comfort in the radio, where he would spend hours listening to country music and gospel songs. The melodies and heartfelt lyrics resonated with him, sparking a deep interest in creating his own music. Through the sounds that filled his home, he developed a passion for songwriting, using music as both an escape and a way to express himself. Johnny's chance to leave his small town came through military service, which took him to Germany. After completing his duty, he set his sights on his true passion, music. At 22, he moved to Memphis, determined to make a name for himself as a musician. Once there, he connected with two car mechanics who shared his love for country music, and together, they formed a band. Eager to break into the industry, Johnny sought out Sam Phillips, the visionary behind Sun Records. This record label would go on to shape the future of rock and roll, launching the careers of some of the biggest names in music history, including Elvis Presley, Roy Orbison, and Jerry Lee Lewis. On April 1st, 1955, a day many would assume to be a prank, Sam Phillips took a chance on Johnny Cash and his band, the Tennessee Two, signing them to Sun Records and changing the course of his career forever. In 1956, at just 24 years old, Johnny Cash achieved his first big breakthrough with the song "I Walk the Line." The track became a massive success, climbing to the top of the Billboard charts and marking the beginning of his rise to fame. As his career gained momentum, he continued to release powerful songs, including Folsom Prison Blues, which featured the chilling line, "I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die." Lyrics like these were unlike anything the country music world had heard before. They carried a raw, rebellious energy that set Johnny apart from his peers. His music painted a picture of a hardened outlaw, a persona that both fascinated and shocked audiences. This darker, edgier side of his storytelling would become a defining part of his identity, forever shaping the way the world saw Johnny Cash. In 1968, Johnny Cash recorded one of his most iconic live albums at Folsom Prison, reinforcing his rebellious image and proving he was a voice for the forgotten. His connection with the inmates cemented his reputation as a man who stood with the people, regardless of their past. Johnny's rugged look fueled rumors about his cheek scar. Some said it was from a fight or a bullet wound. In reality, it came from a routine cyst removal in 1953, unintentionally adding to his legend. Decades later, on May 18, 2003, at 4 p.m., Johnny was in a very different place. Just days after June Carter's passing, he returned to the studio at Cash Cabin in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Working with producer Rick Rubin, who revived his career in 1994 with American Recordings, Johnny poured his grief into the music. Every note carried the weight of heartbreak. Struggles and last performance. Johnny picked up his first cigarette at just 10 years old, a habit that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Over the decades, constant smoking took a serious toll on his health, leaving him struggling to catch his breath. The damage to his lungs was irreversible, yet despite the risks, he could never bring himself to quit. Smoking had become an addiction he couldn't break, no matter how much it affected him. By 1991, the impact of his lifelong habit was clear. During an interview at the Country Music Awards, the years of smoking showed in his voice and his breathing, a visible sign of how much his body had endured. There have been claims that Johnny continued smoking in his final years, though it was rarely seen. Whether or not that was true, one fact remains. He had been a heavy smoker for most of his life. The years of constant tobacco use severely weakened his lungs, and without a doubt it played a major role in his eventual respiratory failure. However, smoking wasn't his only vice. Johnny also became dependent on another substance. He was known for his boundless energy, but when he needed to rest, it was nearly impossible to get him back on his feet. His son, John Carter, recalled struggling to wake his father at times, finding him completely unresponsive, as if he had slipped away into another world. By July 5, 2003, at 7:30 p.m., Johnny Cash stood on stage at the Carter family fold in Virginia. He had just 69 days left to live. Even though Johnny Cash was visibly unwell, he continued to do what he loved most: perform. Music wasn't just a passion for him, it was his lifeline, the very thing that had carried him through the highs and lows of his life. No matter how weak his body felt, his love for the stage never faded. But on this night, as he stood before the crowd, no one knew that this would be the final time he would ever perform. This was the last show Johnny Cash would ever give. It was clear that Johnny's voice was fading, especially when he tried to hit the lower notes. Singing had become a struggle, and his weakened state made it even harder. Still, despite the strain in his voice and the toll on his health, he managed to deliver a performance that left an impact. Even in his final moments on stage, he had a presence that held the audience's attention. But while he now seemed at ease in front of a crowd, there was a time when stepping onto the stage wasn't so easy for him. The demon of addiction.
I took drugs to get up, and I took drugs to go down and make me feel better.
At the start of Johnny Cash's career, touring was both exciting and exhausting. By the fall of 1957, just a year after the massive success of I Walk the Line, Johnny and his band were traveling across Florida as part of their U.S. tour. The demands of constant touring were relentless. They would often drive hundreds of miles overnight to make it to their next show. With barely 1 or 2 hours of sleep, little time to eat, and no chance to properly rest, the pace began to take a serious toll on him. It wasn't just physical exhaustion that weighed him down. Johnny also battled extreme stage fright. He often felt overwhelmed before stepping in front of a crowd, making it difficult for him to perform. Then, one night, a fellow musician handed him a small pill with a simple promise. "Here, take this little pill. It will solve all of your problems." Johnny had no idea what he was getting himself into. Once he started relying on this secret source of energy, everything changed. His performances became electrifying. He walked on stage with incredible energy, commanding the crowd like never before. But this boost came at a cost. The more he took, the more he needed. His once occasional use quickly turned into a dangerous habit, and soon, the substances had a grip on him that he couldn't shake. Reflecting on his addiction years later, Johnny explained, "People take because they make you feel good, you know. But like I pointed out in my book, there is a demon called deception that, it's like the old wino. He drinks out of the bottle so long, then the bottle starts drinking out of him. Well, the pills. I took the pills so long, the reversal came without me knowing it, when the pills started taking from me." In the 1960s, amphetamines were still legal with a prescription, but by 1965, Johnny's appetite for pills had grown so extreme that no doctor would give him the massive quantities he wanted. Desperate to keep up with his habit, he began crossing the border into Mexico, where he could buy amphetamines in bulk on the black market. Eventually, the law caught up with him. Narcotics officers discovered 688 amphetamine capsules hidden inside his guitar case. A taxi driver, suspecting Johnny had purchased heroin, reported him to U.S. border agents. Johnny was arrested and thrown in jail, but because amphetamines were still classified as prescription substances rather than illegal narcotics, he was released on bail the next day. His 1965 arrest, however, exposed something even more troubling. Along with a large supply of amphetamines, Johnny had also been caught with quaaludes, a sedative used to counteract the effects of the stimulants. Taking both substances together was an extremely dangerous combination, one that could cause drowsiness, muscle weakness, and total loss of control. The very substances he had once relied on to keep him going were now tearing him apart. Health struggles that led to Cash's demise.
The hell of trying to stay alive under such conditions, strung out on amphetamines and barbiturates. You see, it's a vicious cycle.
In 1982, in Griffin, Georgia, Johnny Cash was filming Murder in Coweta County with his wife, June, and their 12-year-old son, John Carter Cash. His son often complained about Johnny's loud snoring, but one night, something worse happened. Johnny stopped breathing. John Carter tried to wake him, but Johnny was unresponsive. Reports suggested he had overdosed on tranquilizers. In a panic, his family rushed him into the shower, pouring cold water over him for 5 minutes. Still, he didn't wake up. After nearly 10 minutes, June finally revived him. Whether he continued using such substances later is unclear, but years of substance abuse had already taken a toll. Officially, Johnny died of respiratory failure, but lingering questions remain about what truly led to his death. In 1988, at 56, Johnny Cash underwent double coronary bypass surgery after decades of stimulant use and 45 years of heavy smoking. His heart and vascular system were severely damaged. While recovering at Baptist Hospital in Nashville, Tennessee, he shocked his doctors by sneaking out for a smoke just 30 minutes before the procedure. On July 8, 2003, at 8:30 p.m., at the Cash family ranch in Hendersonville, Tennessee, just 67 days before his death, Johnny returned home after performing at the Carter family fold. His health was rapidly deteriorating. Since June's passing, he had become less mobile, and his vision was worsening due to type 2 diabetes, which he had been diagnosed with in his 50s. Beyond smoking, Johnny's diet contributed to his health decline. His sister recalled how he drank chocolate syrup straight from the bottle, and he loved cheddar cheese dipped in brown sugar. Even after surgery, his go-to meals were fried chicken or meatloaf. For Johnny, indulgence was a way of life. From fame to fragility. By the late 1990s, Johnny Cash's health was rapidly deteriorating. 9 years had passed since his heart surgery, and the effects of his long-standing health issues were becoming more and more apparent. While performing in front of 6,000 fans, Johnny suddenly became lightheaded and confused. Midway through the show, he fumbled his guitar pick and was unable to grasp it. His hands trembled as he leaned over to retrieve it, but his body was failing him. Then, in a shocking moment, the legendary outlaw collapsed right on stage. The audience watched in stunned silence as he struggled to regain his footing. With assistance, he managed to get back up and continue, but his speech had become slurred, and he appeared disoriented. Some in the crowd mistook his behavior for intoxication, and the heckling began. But Johnny, never one to back down, silenced the room with an unexpected confession. "Folks, I'm in bad shape. I've got Parkinson's disease." Gasps filled the venue. The world had just learned that the man in black was facing an incurable illness. Within hours, headlines everywhere spread the shocking news. Television networks, newspapers, and magazines all reported on Johnny's diagnosis, marking a turning point in how the world viewed the aging music legend. However, in a surprising twist, doctors would later retract the Parkinson's diagnosis. After further testing, they determined that Johnny was actually suffering from autonomic neuropathy, a condition affecting the nervous system. This disorder caused many of the same symptoms: muscle weakness, tremors, and loss of control over body movements. The underlying cause? Diabetes. By the time of his death, diabetes had wreaked havoc on Johnny's body. And as if that wasn't enough, he also suffered from yet another serious illness, further adding to his long list of health battles. Johnny battled this illness throughout his entire life. His military records reveal that he was hospitalized with pneumonia at just 15 years old, a condition likely tied to his childhood in rural Arkansas. The town of Kingsland, Arkansas, where Johnny grew up, was part of what became known as the Dust Bowl, an area devastated by extreme dust storms during the 1930s and 1940s. The dry, harsh conditions filled the air with thick dust, leading to widespread cases of dust pneumonia, which claimed many lives. It is highly probable that Johnny's early bout with pneumonia was a direct result of prolonged exposure to these harsh environmental conditions. As he grew older, pneumonia continued to haunt him. In the final years of his life, he was frequently hospitalized, sometimes for 10 days, sometimes for a full month, all due to recurring bouts of the illness. His health was already in steep decline, yet despite these repeated warnings, he held on to the same harmful habits that had plagued him for years. The Man in Black's farewell. On July 8, 2003, on Cash Family Ranch, Hendersonville, Tennessee, just one day after his final public performance, Johnny Cash faced another battle, this time against his failing body. With only 66 days left to live, his health was declining rapidly. That day, his physical therapist, Phil Maffetone, arrived at the Cash Family Ranch to assess his condition and provide treatment. Johnny didn't hold back about how he was feeling. He told Maffetone that he could no longer feel his toes or fingers. His balance was unsteady, and at times he struggled with slurred speech. Seeing the urgency, Maffetone placed him on a structured diet and exercise routine, hoping to slow the decline and rebuild some of his strength. At first, Johnny responded well to the changes, showing small but noticeable improvements. But despite these efforts, another serious setback was just around the corner, one that his body might not be able to overcome. His final decline had begun. On September 5, 2003, just a week before his death, Johnny Cash was hospitalized with severe heartburn, another consequence of decades of smoking and an unhealthy diet. His body was failing, but he fought on. One day, his physical therapist, Phil Maffetone, found Johnny slumped in his chair, weak and distant. When Phil tried to help him stand, Johnny had no strength left. Meeting Phil's gaze, he simply said, "It's time." By 4:45 p.m., his condition worsened. Struggling to breathe, his body shut down completely. As paramedics carried him out, Phil knew it was the end. Phil told Johnny, "Goodbye, friend." On September 12, 2003, at 1:45 a.m., Johnny's family rushed to Baptist Hospital, hoping to be with him in his final moments. Despite doctors' efforts, nothing could be done. At exactly 2 a.m., Johnny Cash took his last breath. The Man in Black was gone, leaving behind a legendary legacy. On Monday, September 15, 2003, more than 1,000 family members, close friends, and admirers gathered at the First Baptist Church near Hendersonville to say their final goodbyes to Johnny Cash. The service was filled with sorrow and reflection, as those who had known him best came together to honor his life, music, and legacy. After the funeral, Johnny was laid to rest beside his wife of 35 years, June Carter, the woman who had been his greatest source of strength and love. Their bond had been unbreakable in life, and now they were together again. Many believe that Johnny's passing was the result of a broken heart, unable to go on without June by his side. However, his physical therapist, Phil Maffetone, revealed a startling detail. Just 2 months before his death, Johnny had been prescribed over 30 different medications, raising questions about what truly led to his final days. The final revelation. Johnny Cash's physical therapist, Phil Maffetone, discovered that Johnny was taking over 30 prescription medications, including Thorazine, despite not having a psychotic disorder. His doctor claimed it was for chronic hiccups. This extreme polypharmacy likely contributed to his declining health. For over 20 years, Johnny suffered from kidney problems, and the excessive medications only worsened them, possibly leading to kidney failure. However, when he was rushed to the hospital for the last time, Phil noticed that Johnny's gut had completely shut down, raising questions about what truly caused his death. In 1983, Johnny had undergone surgery for a severe stomach ulcer, which he admitted was caused by long-term pill use. With 30 medications in his system at the time of his death, another ulcer may have formed. After his wife June passed, Johnny had to sleep upright due to severe acid reflux, a crucial clue in his final health decline. Johnny also suffered from autonomic neuropathy, a diabetes-related condition that impaired his stomach's ability to regulate acid production. As acid built up, it likely traveled into his esophagus and lungs, which were already compromised by pneumonia and decades of smoking. The acid damage led to respiratory failure, ultimately ending his life. Johnny's choices, heavy smoking, excessive medication use, and neglecting his health, contributed to his death. Yet, despite years of hardship, addiction, and illness, he defied the odds and lived to 71. His life remains a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Johnny Cash's final moments remain a haunting chapter in his legendary life. What do you think was the most tragic part of his journey? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of iconic figures. And before you go, check out one of the 2 videos on the screen for more incredible stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.